when it comes to using a knife like this, uh, there are a few key things I bear in mind that I tell whenever I'm instructing someone on violin making in any way, and I see them, most people do this. They use too much force, they use too much muscle, and inevitably the tool will slip or it'll cut too much or cut them. You know, people get hurt with these all the time. Me too, sometimes, when I'm doing something stupid, and in retrospect, I'm always doing something stupid when I hurt myself. But when I'm using the tool correctly, it's 100% safe, 100% accurate. And the way I use it, I find it's actually a lot easier than what I see some, especially beginners, when they're first getting into violin making. So instead of using like the whole arm, like you're trying to start a lawnmower or something, um, I actually brace most of my arm up against my body, and this whole portion of my arm is actually quite stiff and quite strong. You know, it's not going to go anywhere. I'm not moving that part back and forth. Instead, because you know, when you're chipping away, you're not taking that much wood off anyway. You're not trying to take off, you know, 3 miles of wood. So instead, what I do is, the way I hold it like this. So I hold it like that, and it's I squeeze. I don't even pull. It's not a pulling motion. I'm squeezing the knife. So actually, it's these muscles here that are working, and I'm squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. And with the thumb, either I'm bracing against the work, but not in front of the blade. You know, if it were to go through the work right to the thumb, that's not great. Your thumb does not appreciate that. But the thumb might be lower down, bracing against the work like this. You know, if your thumb is bracing against the work and it's below the knife, that's one way to do it. But actually, I don't even do that most of the time. Most of the time, it really is, you know, you brace the arm, then you just squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Let's see if I can see the arm here. So I put it up against the work, and this part is extended. I'm holding the knife with the tips of my fingers, and it's extended. Put it up against the work. The thumb, in this case, is free to move, and I squeeze. It's like a curling, squeezing. I'm squeezing it. You can see I'm not pulling at all. I'm not pushing, I'm not pulling. I am squeezing. And that gives me about 3-4 centimeters of work. That's maybe inch and a half of pulling. And that's really all you need, because you're working in such small steps all the time. You don't need to yank on it the way that you think you would. When I'm using the spokeshave, I'm actually using a very similar technique to when I'm using the knife. And that is that I'm not using a lot of force. I'm doing my best not to use very much force. Instead, when I'm pulling the whole thing this way, my arms are actually they're very loose, they're very relaxed. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm using the two big back muscles here to really pull my shoulders back. And by doing that, I actually have a lot more control. I'm using quite a bit of force, obviously, of actual, you know, the forces on this are actually quite great, but I have a lot of control because the muscles that are producing that force are so large that it's actually a very small percentage of how much energy they have. Whereas if I were just to use my forearms like this and this portion of my arm, in comparison to the bigger muscles in the back, and that's on any person. It doesn't matter if you're a bodybuilder or you're a strong man. It doesn't matter. Most people will have stronger back muscles because you're using them all day anyway to hold yourself up. Whereas these arm muscles, well, they can be very strong. They're not as, okay, let's put it this way. These muscles, these smaller muscles, are used more like the steering wheel in the car. And I'm using them to guide the tool where I want it to go. The actual force of moving the tool through the wood is coming from my back. And so when I'm working here, it's a little bit like I'm doing pull-ups. Obviously I need to have control with my arms, but the force is coming from the back.